Okay, more now in our top story on the suspected poisoning of Alexei Navalny. There's a long list of Kremlin critics who've been poisoned in the past. In 2004, journalist Anna Politkovskaya, who reported on Russian abuses in Chechnya, became ill and lost consciousness after drinking tea. She recovered, but she was shot dead outside her apartment building in 2006. Later that year, former Russian spy Alexander Litvinenko died in London after drinking tea laced with the radioactive substance polonium-210. And then in 2018, former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were poisoned with a nerve agent Novichok in the English city of Salisbury. Now, they survived, but a British woman exposed to the chemical died. Bharat Pankhania is a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School, and he's joining us by Skype from Bath in the UK. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. I understand that you were linked to the investigation into the recent Novichok poisoning. So let me ask you, in terms of the poisons that can be used for this type of thing, how long do poisons normally stay in the body?
It depends on them. Most of these poisons are of the neurotoxin variety. They're basically nerve agents used in industry, and when you weaponize them, you make them super potent. And what they do is they affect your breathing, your neurotransmission, and they can paralyze you, make you unable to function, and set you into a coma. And the idea is it happens very suddenly. So sometimes these chemicals bind irreversibly with your receptors in your body, your nerve receptors. And then all you have to do is hope and pray that new receptors are generated and that we can keep you alive whilst new nerve receptors are generated to allow you to function again. It's a very fine and difficult balancing act that we have to undertake. Sometimes people survive with difficulties, sometimes people do not survive.
It is, as you say, a difficult balancing act because on the one hand, it is necessary to try to save the life of a patient. At the same time, I would imagine that the process of identifying which toxin is to blame is a long one. How quickly is it possible to identify a toxin and at the same time not put the life of the patient at risk?
So in terms of identifying it, it depends what you're looking for. Sometimes we can get a blood sample or a sample from the skin, etc., and do what we call mass spectroscopy. And we might just pick it up. So my answer to you is you might pick it up, you might never pick it up. And you can see with how with the current person, Navalny, who has been poisoned, allegedly, they've kept him in the Russian custody for long enough in the hope that the biological agent will have been diluted, washed out, or degraded, and therefore you won't find any evidence. So this is what you would call terrorism, really, or war games. And you might find it, you may never find it.
One can imagine that there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the Berlin doctors from all sides as people are demanding answers to this. Tell us what kind of damage that poisons can do, because I imagine from what you're saying that there's no such thing as a situation where somebody emerges completely clear after having been poisoned, that there is always some residual effect.
So yes, it depends on what agent has been used, but in these what I would call personal terror attacks, where they want to sort of, one, harm you, and two, send a signal to others that don't do this or we will get you. So it has to be something that acts fast, something that acts irreversibly, and something that then may leave you with lasting damage as a reminder that this can happen to you too. So invariably, these are nerve agents, and depends on how much neurological damage it does. So it's, of course, dose dependent, how much you got. So as your report said, the poor English lady who probably got a high dose unfortunately died. So it really is a very difficult balancing act. And for people to say, oh, by the way, this is low blood glucose and there's no sign of chemical poisoning is ridiculous. Because from what I hear, Mr. Navalny became very ill very suddenly, and then he lost consciousness and then the rest is history. That's not how hypoglycemia presents. So, of course, there is something that has happened, something that has been administered to him, and we may find out, we may never find out. But we shouldn't focus all our energies on what was it that caused it. What we have to do is look at the signs, the symptoms, the presentation, how he became ill, and that in itself tells you a clear story of something negative has been done to him.
We really appreciate you giving us the benefit of your expertise. Badar Pankhania, thank you very much for joining us on Al Jazeera.
Thank you.